Welcome everyone. My name is Igor Sedemenko. I'm a partner with EY and I'm a leader for our power and utilities practice. I'm very excited today to be a part of the panel and to facilitate a very interesting topic, unlocking the value of smart utilities management in the 21st century. Before we begin, I'd like to make an acknowledgement. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects for the elders past and present. I extend that respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people here today. Secondly, to thank our sponsors, French-Australian Chamber of Commerce for the organisation of this event, French Embassy Austrade, more specifically Schneider Electrical for this specific segment, and all other sponsors are part of this exciting event. Unlocking value in the smart utilities is a topic which is dear to my heart. I spend all my time working with energy, water clients, gas organisations in helping them digitise their processes, their capability, and working on how to improve the services to the community and their customers. Today, we have an exciting panel of members, which we are going to have a great discussion on the topic for the next approximately 45 minutes. And then afterwards, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions to the panel members. So, to the introduction of our panel members. First of all, Rock Shiro, Managing Director of Sydney Water. Amit Channon, Director of City Projects and Property, City of Sydney. Mauro de la Monac, Vice President, Industry Pacific and Schneider Electric. And Jean-Michel Violia, General Manager for Water, Victoria and Tasmania. Welcome, gentlemen, and thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Let's kick off. And let's kick off, Rock, with yourself. What does unlocking value of smart utilities management actually mean to you? A very broad topic, but I wouldn't mind a couple of perspectives from you.
It's a good question, Igor. I think, when we're talking about smart utilities, I guess we're talking about making sure that all the technology that is available tomorrow is used to the best interest of our customers. So that's about using all the sensors that we've got available, using all the analytics platform that we've got available, using all the digital tools that we've got available to deliver value to our customers. And this value is basically delivered in mainly two streams. One is obviously productivity, so that's improving the productivity of our utilities using smart technologies. So that's a way to basically reduce the utility bills for our customers. And the second stream is about making information available to our customers. There's a lot of our customers that are asking a lot more transparency and access to a very different kind of information. And the smart technologies that we've got available give us the possibility to make this information available to our customers. So that's how I would define unlocking the value of smart utilities.
Thanks, Rock. Amit?
Thanks, Igor. I think I echo what Rock's just said. When we talk about value, I guess with the city's hat on, the context or the definition of the term value, we see it as always seen from the lens of community. Whether it's our residents, our business, our visitors, how we can use it, the smart technologies to provide value to all of those is essentially what we are thinking of when we're thinking of smart unlocking the value. So inevitably, it goes beyond direct financial value. It goes into what it means for community, what it means for customer service. If you think about the right definition of smart, I think one of the best I've heard is the marriage between technology and people. And that's essentially what this is. It is a marriage of technology and people. It is not just about new technology for the sake of technology. It is about implementing that technology to improve the service offerings, to improve the using that data to improve the way our customers make decisions, to improve the outcomes, in terms of life outcomes for them. In an environment that's sort of resource constrained, becoming smart to us as a city is all about doing more with less and engaging with our community in that. So there is a huge amount of value that this transformation can produce. One of the examples that Rock was just giving, gone are the days when a customer used to ring the customer service to say, I've got a broken pipe or a pothole to fix. They now take a picture and put it on the Twitter. And within a matter of minutes, that's on social media, and your response time have to respond to that as well. And smart technology enables service providers like the city and the Sydney Water to be able to work with our customers who are now, demanding a rapid response in that social media world.
Perfect. Amit, and look, I really like the definition of marriage between tech and people, and the fact that social media, it's a great enabler, but at the same time can be a headache because we have to respond so instantaneously because you are there and you've got so many stakeholders to be able to manage at the same time as part of the organizations which you're leading.
Yeah.
Mauro and Jean-Michel, obviously being strategic partners to utilities and to city councils, you see the proliferation of significant of digital technologies, and both Amit and Rock have spoken briefly about this. And we've seen the IoT concepts coming through. We've seen the convergence of information technology and operational technology, right? And those are not new topics, but I think the growth and the speed that the technology is changing is incredible. So maybe a couple of comments from yourselves with regards to how you see utilities embracing sort of the technology and advancements in data analytics capability, and how they're harnessing the value from your perspective.
Yeah, if you don't mind me starting, I think first off, it's important to recognize that these organizations are cautious because while we've seen a proliferation of digital technologies, we've probably seen as large, if not a larger proliferation of cybersecurity challenges. I would say in this regards, organizations are relying on reputable suppliers as well as global standards to shorten that trial period so that we can actually start embracing those new technologies as they become available. I would say more broadly than that, what I've seen is, I'd say in early part of the 2000s, an embracing of collecting data. And with the cost of storage continuing to come down, that made a lot of sense. The last 5 years, I would say the focus has shifted to gaining knowledge and applying things like machine learning and AI to actually gain greater wisdom out of that data for tangible outcomes. And then I'd say even in the last year or two, specifically, I think because of several events here in Australia, a continued focus on embracing a more holistic view of that data for sustainability and energy goals. So what I continue to see is organizations embracing the United Nations Sustainable Goals, and that becoming almost embedded in regards to the thought process around how technologies are used and how they're focused.
Perfect. Jean-Michel?
Yeah, so what we can, I think in our water industry, there's a lot of activity today when we talk about digitalization. A lot of people are talking about it. And WASA, which is a Water Service Association of Australia, has done some work with water utility to try to frame a bit more what digitalization can do and means. The large water authority are doing a lot of things, and Rock will talk most probably what he's doing at Sydney Water, what he has done at SA Water. There's a lot of activity. It's a bit less obvious for smaller water authorities, and we can see sometimes they're struggling a bit to understand why digitalization and try to understand what the driver is. And this is currently what we are trying to look on. So it's easier for a company like Veolia because we are a service provider. For us, it's a defensive position. We want to keep what we have, or offensive, want to go more get more business. For small water authorities, it's a bit of a struggle because they don't have that capability, that the level of finance that might be necessary to do something. In terms of value, I think Rob talked about that. Customer centricity is what all the water authorities are willing to do. It's more or less difficult, depends on the size and depends where they are, but it's something that is quite important. Giving a good service to the customer is something we all want to do. What we have seen in terms of value is smaller water authorities is really the value you extract from the data. So this make a decision better, inform the customer, being transparent, and Rob was saying before. And breaking silos is also important in the companies. Is when you have a platform and data available on one platform is available to everyone in the organization. And it's not only to asset management people or the customer service people. So that's something that we try to promote. It's not always easy to quantify the value that this will bring. We all know that efficiency will be there. What we have seen so far is more the smart use of data can drive a lot of cost efficiency by better planning, by being more proactive, less reactive. And I will talk again today is more what we have been trying to do in artificial intelligence world is really this predict, prevent when we can, and also with this new IoT, new sensors about detect and be able to act soon after a problem happened on the ground. We are talking about the leaks, for instance. If we can be informed of the leak 5 minutes after it happened, we can minimize the impact of the customer, for instance. This kind of thing that we are currently working on. And more, I think cybersecurity is something we need to keep in mind, because the more we do, the more we have to be protected as well. And something that is quite a bit of a challenge, and smaller water authorities might struggle with that. Larger ones have a better understanding of what that means, but that's based on what I've seen so far.
That's a very, very good insight, Jean-Michel. And some of the things obviously I've picked up some of the key words about moving from passive to more proactive, more insightful, making the decision not only from the customer, but also how do you make the decisions quickly and act on them quicker with your clients and customers going forward. Interesting concepts around sort of a cyber and resilience. And Mauro, I'm going to ask a couple of questions going forward on that as well, because I think that's a topic which sometimes, just certain perspective, prevents a bit of innovation. And it depends whether you're a fast follower or not, or whether you are an innovator within this organizations. But maybe jumping to Rock back to yourself, right? I know Sydney Water is one of the leading organizations in embracing the different technologies, and yourself, you've got one of the biggest networks of water and wastewater. And I think data becomes a very important concept in managing the network, making operational, making capital decisions, and being obviously going back to the customer and reacting quickly to that. And I know that Sydney Water has invested into some of the technologies that Mauro and Jean-Michel spoke about, advanced sensing, robotics, and machine learning. Would love to get your thoughts on the lessons learned around of how do you make your networks smarter, and what's your experience in that? Okay,
if you give me 2 or 3 hours, probably I can talk about all the things that we're doing. But I'll try to make it short. Look, I think, and it's been said today, but the technology today exists. So we've got all the sensors that you can dream of. We've got the transmission platform, and it can be IoT, it can be 4G, 5G, it can be radio, it can be all sorts of things. And we've got the analytics platform as well that are existing to collect the information and collect the data and produce the information that we need to manage our assets. In the case of network, yes, we've got about 49,000 kilometers of network underground. So 49,000 kilometers. You imagine the sort of length of pipe that it is. And because it's underground, the level of information or the level of data that let's call it information that we get from our network is very limited. Now, we want to make sure that we deliver the best service to our customers. So in terms of water network, it means we want actually to predict when a break will happen on the network. Today, the technology actually gives us the possibility to do it. If we've got the sensors that are put in the right place, and I'm thinking here especially about acoustic and flow and pressure sensors, with this sort of information, we will probably most of the time, not 100% of the time, but most of the time, we will be able to predict that something is going to happen. Now, the big difficulty is that when you've got, so water network is about 22,000 kilometers. When you've got 22,000 kilometers of network, it means a lot of sensors. So you want to be sure that the way you position your sensors is the right way, because you could spend millions in positioning sensors that will not give you the right information. So that's definitely one of the difficulty that we have, making sure that in the very complex grid that we've got, because our network is a grid, we have the positioning of the sensors right. The rest, the technology will look after itself in terms of transmission and analytics, and we'll get what we need. But the positioning of sensors in the water grid is one of the tricky parts of the job. Wastewater network is another story, but actually wastewater network, we also understand where we need to position the sensors so that they will be able to analyze the variation of flows into the network and tell us when the network is starting to clog and starting to be a bit blocked, and which is usually a sign that in the future we're going to have an overflow in this part of the network. So it's probably a bit simpler in the wastewater network. But I think, you know, it's the technology is there, so it's very much how we apply the technology, how we implement it. The critical aspect is probably more on how we worked inside our corporations, our businesses, to transform the way we've been doing water for 200 years, most of us, and in a quite a traditional way, and how we transform the way we've done water during 200 years into the way we need to do water now. And that's all focused on customers. And the only reason why we're going into smart technologies is because it provides a service to our customers. We're not doing that because of technology. We're doing that for the service really that it provides to our customers. And in changing that, in changing the way we do water, you've got quite a significant piece of work that we need to do on our people. And that's probably, you know, one of the challenging parts in any organization is when you have new technologies coming in, we need also to make sure that our people keep up to speed with the technology and use the technology to, I guess, to the benefit that it can deliver. So when you think about someone who's been operating a water network for 20 or 30 years, and their job has been to, you know, open and close valves, repair a pipe, dig a trench, etc., etc. And then suddenly you put them in front of a computer or a screen, and this screen will basically become one of their tools that they're going to use every day in terms of communication, in terms of access to information, in terms of access to drawings, etc., etc. That's sometimes a challenge. And that's something that we have to take into account. So just to give you an example of something that we did in one of my previous companies, we wanted to move the workforce to tablets and mobile phone. Well, actually, what we did is that 6 months before we implemented the move to tablets and smartphone, we simply gave smartphones to our workforce and said, well, actually, that's now your company phone. And some of our staff had never had a smartphone. And you can imagine some of our people in their 50s, they never had a smartphone before. So we give them a smartphone a few months before. We gave them the time to get used to a smartphone, call their colleagues with it, set up their emails, understand how emails worked. And then 6 months after, we came back with the dispatch platform, the access to the safety documents, the access to the drawings, the interface with the customer center, etc., etc. But that way was the fact of doing it in a very progressive way was absolutely critical in making sure that we could transition our workforce to a digital age. So, I think not underestimating the impact on the workforce transitioning from the sort of traditional way of working to the digital way of working is one of the critical success factors.
Sounds like there was a full cultural transformation there, Rock, which had to be undertaken to make the technology and sort of the data insight successful as part of that. Yeah. I know, Jean-Michel, I know you've had some great experiences in this space as well.
I cannot agree more with what you said, what Rock said. I think digitalization without change management won't work. And I think we have seen that in France, where we started digitalization about 5-6 years ago. And our first project was the city of Lyon, where there were 1.1 million people. As part of a tender response, we had a contract, wanted to keep it, wanted to improve the productivity, and Rock talk about that. And then we installed 6,000 sensors in order to be able to detect, because that was an issue we had there. And we did that for transparency because the client wanted, we are a service provider, the client wanted more transparency, the customer wanted more transparency, better service to customer, cost efficiency, because we are a private contractor, we need to be efficient because we are bidding against other companies in some ways. And then we did that in different cities in France. Then in 2017, we imported that concept to Australia as part of response to an EOI published by Intelligent Water Network, which is 17 water authorities in Victoria and the Department of Water working together to promote innovation. And the way we implemented that is we look at 3 water authorities, try to understand their business, build their business case, understand exactly what they were after. Then Western Water decided to volunteer, and we implemented that. And we had that running since 2018. Western Water is smaller water authorities, is about 180,000 people. So but it's typical to what we have in Victoria outside Metro Melbourne. And we have been live for pretty much 3 years. We interfaces 6 sources of data: the SCADA, the GIS, the customer management system, the customer information, water quality system, work order, GPS. And this is what we did. We didn't install sensors because the trial was not about sensors, and as Rock said, sensors could be quite expensive. They are cheap, but we need plenty of them, many of them either, so it becomes quite expensive. So we look really at how to bring this data into a platform to allow the operation center to make quicker decisions, better informed decisions, mainly when they were dealing with customer or had to deal with an issue on the network. And this is pretty much what we have seen in terms of value extracted there. So we published a case study with RWN and WASA on this project. But then we realized that we have a lot of data, and the good news of data was in one spot. And so, okay, what can we do with that? And looking at this amount of data and looking at what our client, Western Water, was after. They had water quality issues, they had sewer blockage issues, they have main break issues, so non-revenue water. So we decided to pick a couple of topics like sewer blockages, for instance. Not a lot, 450 sewer blockages per year, but difficult for them, very reactive, annoying the customer, you don't want wastewater flowing main street of the village. It's not very something we did. So what we did there, we built an AI model with 3 years of data. Then we validate that with the 4th year of data. Then we injected 10 years of data to see where we are. And now we can forecast a sewer blockage. And then we say, okay, what do we do with that? Because actually the idea is to prevent. Predict is a good thing, but what about preventing? Then we started looking at that model as a way to optimize relining project or pipeline replacement project. And the idea behind that is really make the best use of the budget that the water authority had, or try to defer capital replacement if possible, because it's also a soft benefit of financial benefit to the customer. So we did the same thing on main break as well. So try to predict the main break. And we can tell you where the main break is going to happen. We can tell you when it's going to happen, because we need sensors. That's the difficulty of it. But we can still help reducing the number of main break and improve the non-revenue water, so the water loss that is not being billed to the customer, by predicting where it's going to happen, by trying to prevent, by doing better pressure management, by replacing weak pipeline, these kind of things. This is what we have been trying to do. And as a kind of a provocation, I say, can we become invisible as a water service provider? Yes, we can, because actually we try to predict, we try to prevent, we have to detect. We will never be completely invisible, but at least the idea behind what we are trying to do is not to annoy the customer, to make sure that the customer ignore who we are. And if I was water authority, as long as they pay the bill, it's fine, but it's more we do the job, and they don't know who does the job, the job is being done. And that's something that the concept that we are trying to promote in what VRI is currently doing in Victoria. And some smaller water authorities are embracing the concept. And the idea for us is making sure that it's affordable. So we are developing a new platform, for instance, that is more affordable than the old one, because we are progressing every day. But pretty much the experience of Western Water, and I think it's available if you want to know more about it. Western Water will talk about it better than I do.
Jean-Michel, I think there's some great experience for both global and also bringing it to local utilities as well, and interesting perspectives of how adoption from large organizations versus smaller regional utilities, and how they potentially look at value and how do they actually experiment as well. And with limited capital, all of our organizations are to a certain extent have to make the right decisions and where to put the money, and how do you at the same time serve the customer at the right level. But Mauro, I know from your perspective, Schneider Electrical has got a rich history around innovation, the platforms, and again, working with energy, water councils, and even sort of transport. If I look at sort of wider utility definition, and it is about making utilities smarter, driving value, but at the same time, you mentioned in sort of your introduction is about how do you, an element of safety and resilience as well. Maybe a couple of comments from yourself on what your experience has been with the organizations that you work with closely.
Yeah, so I would say, first, maybe I'll start off with a couple practical examples. A lot of these utilities have, they can be very dangerous work environments at some of these sites. And so there's definitely technology that allows you to minimize the risk to employees. Examples of that would be using an augmented system that lets you look into panels where there's all that dangerous electrical energy built up. Why open that cabinet door? Why not hold up a mobile device of some form to get some knowledge of what's happening behind that panel? You can go a little bit further and actually say, do we actually need to get people at site? And I would actually say with COVID, there was some really interesting examples where organizations, utilities already had the digital technologies, but let's say they had processes that were 5, 10, 15 years older. And the alarms are still going off at site, but nobody was allowed to get to site because of restrictions. And so really it wasn't the technology that needed to be implemented, it was really the processes sitting in behind that, because the technology was already allowing for that capability to happen. So a couple practical examples there. I think from a Schneider perspective, when it comes to resiliency, one of the things we're actually focusing on, it might be a bit counterintuitive, is that there is a push for open systems, and that systems should be interchangeable. Assets are arriving for water utilities, gas utilities, and all the rest of it from manufacturers all over the world with disparate systems. And how do you actually build in some resiliency with that? I mean, there's a lot of cost tied up with learning and training and engineering across various systems. So one of the things we're actually passionately focusing on is how do we actually make a more asset-driven control systems that can be engineered in the background and deployed across various manufacturers' systems, and build in that inherent resiliency that comes from that. Maybe the last part to focus on is the cybersecurity piece that I touched on earlier. And what I find is that we're building our products with cybersecurity in mind right from the design phase. And then also, I think there has been a lot of strengthening in the global certification bodies, because it's complex, and no location, no site, no organization is completely cyber secure. So it's trying to do all the right things to minimize your risk. And that goes so far when it comes to technology, and I think it's already been talked around how people are important in this mix, and so how much of the phishing exercises and all the rest of it, those processes need to be organized, and people need to be trained and to recognize the hazards and what that looks like. And again, technology can help that as well, because we have learning systems, we have training systems that help show those threats and make those threats more visible, and help minimize that risk as well.
Yeah, I work with a lot of businesses, and cyber is one of the top topics on most of the boards, right? There's part of it is education, part of it is sort of building the capability internally, and using the right partners to deliver some of the services. But it is also those measured decisions of how much data you expose and how much data do you share, and sort of in a collaboration type of perspective. And today our topic obviously being smart utility, and we sort of looked at talking quite a lot about the water utilities, right? And then being and water sector is very, in my view, very collaborative in comparison to the electricity sector. But maybe jumping to Amit, to yourself. I know the City of Sydney has invested a significant amount of time, effort, in collaboration with the community in setting up the Smart Sydney vision, and underpinning that, most recently, the Smart City Strategic Framework, which I think is a fascinating document about how do you empower the community, how do you look at the customers, how do you look at partnering with organizations in a wider ecosystems, right? And how do you actually start utilizing both technology and data to not only empower the City of Sydney, but actually the citizens, right? And a smart utility, a smart city, it's not only about the company, it actually goes back to original comments about it's the people, which is at the center. Would love to hear your thoughts on your vision and the progress you've in the space of how you are driving that program of work.
Thanks, Igor. In terms of the framework itself, as you said, the city spent quite a bit of time sort of engaging with not just the public sector stakeholders, but the business and the community. Quite an extensive consultation program to develop the framework. And one of the things, I guess, that became quite apparent for us as an organization in going through that journey was that when it comes to smart framework or smart infrastructure, it's a bit different to master planning a sort of a built infrastructure city. Because it's not quite one master plan and that's it. It is a by definition an iterative and collaborative journey where you have to work with the number of stakeholders, currently sort of in siloed stakeholders, and work with them to make sure that the smart framework builds up and delivers to its full capacity for a city. For us, the role that we see ourselves, undertaking in that is the role of a facilitator that comes and, if you like, connects the dots between state and the private and developing developer sector, and bring everybody together at the right time to make sure that the continuum is getting smarter as we go along. You made a comment about the focus on water. If you think about a city, the idea of smart sort of varies significantly. You can talk to a city who's put in some bins, smart bins, and they declare themselves a smart city. There could be another one that has put some smart parking meters where you don't, the meeting themselves, allows you to pay the bills and never get fined. That's smart. So the whole spectrum is huge, because from public domain to utilities to buildings, there is quite a lot of things that you can do as a city, which relies on cheaper sensors and Internet of Things. But if you think from the point of view of the customer journey, and that's a point I think Mauro was making, there is definitely a push for open systems, because customer journey, you're planning to go to an event, you want to decide your route with minimum traffic, you want to park somewhere where the parking spaces are still available, you want to dine in a restaurant where the tables are still available. All that is possible, but that requires the silos of data to be broken. That requires those dots to be connected. So the customer journey, from the moment you decide to go to an event until you come back home, is smooth. And we feel as a city, we play that role of connecting that dots. And the point about data security, I think we do feel that as a trusted sort of source of a custodian of some of that data, the open data, I think we do have a role to play there as well. But at the end of the day, this whole journey is all about bringing everybody along and making sure that all the players understand how this data could enable a better outcome for the community. It'd be remiss of me if I don't talk a bit about the water part of it as well, because I was born in India, but I always find my spiritual home to be France, and I absolutely love France. One of the things that I enjoy particularly about France is the sewer system of Paris. And one thing my wife will never forget is when we went to Paris for the first time, I took her to Musée des Égouts, which is the Museum of Sewers. And the amazing sort of infrastructure that was built, to Roque's point, that was 200-year-old infrastructure. In Les Miserables, Victor Hugo actually points to the fact that Paris is wasting something like 25 million francs every year, just throwing that nutrient away. He had the wisdom 200 years ago to even question the sense behind that kind of infrastructure. And I think the biggest opportunity for us in terms of the circular economy, in terms of building the infrastructure of the future, is actually there in that water and sewer space. And one of the things that we're doing is actually and working with Roque's team as well on that to come up with a smart system, a network of wastewater recycling scheme in the heart of Sydney CBD. And the idea being, we will have a connected network of prosumers, these buildings that will produce recycled water as well as consume recycled water, using sensors, using blockchain to be able to transact with each other. And that's the infrastructure of the future that these technologies could enable us. And we're really keen as a city to work with our partners like Sydney Water and others to make that happen. In open data, I've already talked about, in a post-COVID world when we are sort of looking at activation, there is wealth of data in Opal, just in Opal card data of how people are coming in, what time they're coming in. And that data is of immense value to retail activation strategies. And we are already sort of in partnership with our state government departments. We're using that data to drive some of those decisions. In public domain space, you may have heard in the media that we are looking at our new suite of street furniture. And that again will enable our bus shelters, our street finding infrastructure to be more smart, that is connected and provides information to the community and makes your journey through the public domain easier. So in terms of the wealth of opportunity that all this provides is really, really exciting. We see our role as an organization that has created that framework, and which is nothing more than a framework. It provides us with a straw man, if you like, to work with each other, and we see our role as facilitator, the connecting the dot part, and also being the trusted entity in our domain to be able to reassure concerns that some people might have around data security as well.
Yeah, I mean, I like that you said that your spiritual home is in France. I think you're in the right forum here.
To be precise, Loire Valley. Any winery up at Loire Valley, I can just retire there.
Yeah, I'd be worried if you said it was Italy or Germany or something like that. We'd have to end this panel quite quickly. But look, frameworks and policies are important, right? I think they're the foundation in a lot of government and utilities to empower that level of vision and direction of actually undertaking important projects like Smart Sydney. But you've spoken again, going back to customer journeys. It's about the community, and I know, Rock, in your earlier answer to the question around sort of the smarter networks and everything, your comment was it's all about the customer, right? So if we come back to Sydney Water or other organizations you worked with, how do you keep sort of the customer as being the key paramount sort of outcome in all of this investment into smart utilities?
Yeah, well, actually, it's not very difficult because the only reason why you're thinking about smart technology is because of customers. And smart technology will be an answer to what you're trying to deliver for your customers. As any other technology or tools or products or services. So this is the question is actually more. Okay, we have our customers, and our customers are telling us we would like this, we would like to have access to this sort of information. We would like our journey to be easier. We would like to get this service and that service. And then you start thinking, okay, how can we deliver that? And then you've got one of the answers. It's not the only one, but one of the answers is smart technologies. And that's basically how you're making sure, you're not making sure that you keep the customer at the heart, because they are at the heart, and you're bringing smart technology to deliver what you want to deliver for your customers. Just coming back on what Amit was saying, because I think this is really important. When Amit was saying that that's a very interconnected world. And that's absolutely true. So, I guess smart technology is a connection of many, many different things. And I don't think that there's any organization that could do everything by itself. So that's where the power of partnering with different organizations, and they may be public or private, but really partnering with different organizations with one objective, that is what we are delivering for our customers. That's what will make the success of all our organizations, actually. And smart technology is actually good, a good way to link all these organizations, because each of us has got a piece of the jigsaw. And if we put that together, then that's where we will deliver what we need to deliver for our customers.
Perfect. And Mara, maybe I'll throw a question about sort of the customer at the heart of smart utilities to yourself. Maybe again, as a strategic partner and working across different countries globally, how do you see the utilities sort of embracing the utilities, but more from the customer perspective? Again, keeping that as a key point?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So I mean, Rock said it right. What do they exist for? Is for that customer base, and I think organizations need to keep that front of mind in every decision they make. So it's not a question of adopting a technology for technology's sake. Now, I live in a world of many electrical engineers and mechanical engineers, and they love technology, and sometimes it's just fun enough to play with the technology. But the context of the why is really quite important in that regards, and it should probably be forefront in whatever we do. You know, there was also some conversations happening around people in general, and so you know, when we actually are looking at introducing technology, are we testing it with a customer, or do we just think it's what they want? And you know, we can probably all speak to massive failures that have existed because nobody chose to talk to the customer about what they actually wanted. We just made assumptions on what they wanted.
Perfect. Yeah. Maybe moving on from sort of the value of smart utility, and you know, we've spoken about the customers, we've spoken about the technology and investment, but at the heart of it is actually the people and the partnerships, right? I mean, you know, it's like you said, Mara, it's about, you know, does the utility need it? Can we test it with them? Can we work with them? It's all about the collaboration. And again, going back to my earlier point, I think, especially in Australia, the water utilities, in my view, have a very strong relationships, both at executive level, at engineering level, at the customer level. There's a lot of collaboration, and I've seen that over again. Amid partnerships and alliances, you know, again, going back to the smarter cities sort of concept is one of the key levers of how you enable that. And like you said, you create an ecosystem for that. Your views on the importance of that in driving this whole smart utilities concept?
I think that is absolutely the engine room in terms of making sure that we do have the place or the ecosystem for the smart thinkers, whether they are the startups or scale-ups in that world, to keep thinking and keep producing the technology that'll take us forward. I'm sure you've all heard of Atlassian as one of the sort of leading edge entity in that space, and they happen to be one of our tenants. So we have regular discussions with them in terms of what are some of their challenges, and they often tell us that the significant talent for them is not attracting talent, it's a retaining talent, and retaining talent is a challenge because the smart people in that space would like to be in the ecosystem of opportunities or the other like-minded sort of, you know, professionals in a similar sort of space, and we don't have enough sort of critical mass of those in Australia at this stage, and that's something that we really want to build. So they end up losing some of that talent to cities in the United States, for example. And one of the things that we're building in sort of with state government is creating that hub where we have enough in this smart ecosystem that can provide the pipeline of talent that we need. You know, the upstream of this pipeline obviously is the international students, you know, the international and national students for that matter, but working with those students, and City is proactively involved in making sure that the students who pick Sydney as a place to come and study, you know, we are reaching out and reaching out to their needs, especially in the times of COVID. We are reaching out and helping them to make sure that they continue to see Sydney as an attractive place to come and study and possibly work in this place. On the other end, just to the ecosystem itself, you know, right now we are actually in the middle of tenders for, you know, 180 George Street, which is going to be the tallest skyscraper in Sydney. We have ensured that there'll be 3 floors of business innovation space, which is targeted at sort of scale-ups and startups, and it'll be available at low cost to these new entities focusing on green technology and other sort of core areas there where we think it'll be good for City to build the ecosystem around. On top of that, City also has the innovation grants scheme that we provide to startups in particular, but also for scale-ups. Each year we give millions of dollars grants from $20,000 to $80,000 on specific projects where you are venturing out into new startup, or you're looking for a new market or new project. The idea is to provide as much support as possible to create that critical mass that allows us to have that talent, and that allows the entities like Atlassian and others to retain that talent because they see Sydney as an attractive place to be. And it's not just City of Sydney. I guess the Western Sydney Metropolis is also, in many ways, is focusing on just that sort of area as well, which will create more opportunities.
Perfect, and that sounds like very exciting initiative there, Amit. And look, when you walk into those innovation centres, right, and you see, young professionals, who come together and sort of generate ideas, it's incredible what can come out of that, which can help the businesses, the communities, and so on. But I think it does go back to skill set. The other day, my 9-year-old son came back from school, and he switched to the computer and he started coding. And it was when I was 9, I don't think I was running around playing soccer outside. And here's this 9-year-old kid moving the loop statements and all of that stuff and getting absolutely excited. So to me, the young generation, the skills we've got to think about is something which is going to be one of the key fundamentals around the skill sets we need to require for the future around smarter utilities. And I think that is going to be the workforce planning, and how do we transform our sort of culture, and Rock, what you were saying, are going to be some of the fundamental levers we have to pull in the businesses. But maybe a question for Jean-Michel and Maura from yourselves, and maybe starting with Jean-Michel, is that what skills do you see are in need in our industries, respective industries, which are going to revolutionize and empower this whole smart utilities concept?
Just to give you an example, and going back to France, the different model I was talking to you about in the artificial intelligence were built by 20-year-old students from Polytechnic who came to Australia as intern for 6 months. So we have 8 of them over 3 years. And actually, this is the people are actually, they are different. And I think it's more, their way of dealing with code, they are a bit older than 9 years old, the coding of system, it's more the way they think about what to make sense of data. It's these kind of people that actually are quite unique in some ways. So we have, and Viola is trying to develop this kind of talent, retaining this kind of talent. So we target quite young people in some ways, not 9 years old yet, but who knows? And I think that's quite important in the way we look at that. And when we talk about digitalization, and Rock talked about it before, it's more change management is something quite important. We need to make sure that we keep that in mind. We cannot really do a digitalization project if we don't have business analysts and change manager. We need that. And also, being a service provider, we need also to keep in mind that IT-related projects are always late or over budget. So we need to also make sure that project management is something quite important. It's a skill that we need as well. And what we need also is the old-timers. We need some of the boomers who understand what to do with the data. I'm just trying to protect my job, is it? Trying to make sure that in some ways we need also these people, because data is data, but also open experience is also quite important in some ways. We need to make sure that the data makes sense. And we saw that with this young student from Polytechnic. We are not year 4 of uni. In some ways, make sure that actually data makes sense, and we bring some experience into it in some ways. So that's something that we believe that is quite important. But yes, we need also IT, OT people, and it's what we already have that, because we need to be agile as a service provider. So we manage small team, and we need people to be quite sharp at what they are doing. So we need this kind of people. Cybersecurity is something quite important. So we need to become specialists in that, because it's not something you can always outsource. We manage a lot of SCADA system for our clients, because we manage treatment plan for them. And we don't want to rely on a third party. Sometimes we want to have the skill in-house. And it's something that's becoming quite important for us in terms of And how do we do that? I don't think Veolia today has a clear strategy about how to develop and retain this talent. Is more where we have an issue, we fix it. But I think we need to work on that, and we are currently working on that at the international level. It's an initiative driven by Australia and France, try to understand where and how to get the people and how to keep them in some ways as well, because you don't want after 2 or 3 years to see them go. It's not pretty much where we are in that field. But,
Mara?
Yeah, I think I'll be brief because I think it's been touched on. I think, you know, having been involved with various programs, there has been a lot of focus on STEM over the last decade. And I think the education system recognizes that. You know, there's always more to do, but I do think if you look at the various tertiary education, they get it. I'm kind of impressed that we're continuing to focus on apprenticeships, and the content needs to evolve. But, you know, again, I believe the focus is there. I think maybe I'll touch on what Jean-Michel and actually what Rock said right at the very beginning about having these individuals in the organization that were maybe a little bit more tenured and not comfortable with technology. I think that's the place to untap. I mean, we, as Amit said, right, Atlassian can't find the people, and we have potentially the challenge we have is really just a skill gap. And so how do we actually put programs in place to actually introduce you know, data analytics and cybersecurity into, you know, a workforce that we already have.
Yeah, can I make a point on that as well? I think one of the things that in terms of knowledge or skill set, we certainly do focus on the STEM, and we certainly do focus on programming. My observation of looking around the utility sector or local government or public sector at large, when you look at the people at the helm, the people who are in charge, the executives, they are not digital native people. And I think there is an element of some sort of you know, skill and capability that needs to be built there as well. The reason being, you know, it's unlocking the smarts is not about, it's not a code for getting rid of everybody over the age of 55. In fact, more data will actually require people with tacit knowledge to transfer that data into information and knowledge. And those people are actually really important, and that the executives who are not digital native, they'll be needed to continue the business at the time when business will be going through this massive transformation of building the new while the operations still have to continue. So they will have to play this bridge role of, while the new is being built, the old models are continuing, and providing that bridge between the old and the new is a skill set that actually we all have to learn and make sure that we enable that transformation over the next 10 years. It's a really important skill set. And I don't think there is any sort of degrees out there that's just focusing on that, but there's a definite demand for executive skill development in that space.
Oh, absolutely. Sounds like, Jean-Michel, your job is safe. Look, well said point, Amit, there. I mean, at the end of the day, we can make the utility smarter, but it is about operations. It's all about still delivering service to the customers. And years of experience is not going to be swapped out by just a quick innovation or some level of data. You know, the importance of understanding the network, the importance of understanding the customers and the assets is, in the longer term, that is the knowledge which is built over years. So I think you're absolutely right there about combining the old and the new, and with the flair of good innovation. And Rock, going back to your sort of, that's, you know, at the heart of it is a sort of the cultural transformation footprint to enable the utilities to become a lot smarter. Look, a fascinating discussion today. We've got time for Q&A, and I encourage all the listeners to put a couple of questions on the panel at the top of the screen. And we will endeavour to answer most of them. So thank you, gentlemen, for your insights and sharing your stories.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.